Hello and welcome to Birth of a New Dimension. I named this show Birth of a New Dimension because I share information and ideas that prepare consciousness for meeting consciousnesses from a vastly different realm. Okay, so we are talking about preparing for the coming together of consciousnesses that are in the third density, submerged in the flow of time, submerged in the river of time, which would be called the fourth dimension, and also experiencing higher dimensions, combining that level of consciousness with beings who are not presently submerged in the third dimension. This is what we are talking about, bringing together consciousness that has occupied varying realms of density. I would like to talk today about consciousness, about the galactic consciousness that is called Christ consciousness, but I would like to begin making a distinction from the Christian religion and the being that I have dubbed false astral Jesus, as well as making a distinction from the Antichrist. And all of this has to do with your own imaginative powers. Basically, I would like to get you to understand that there is an abstract consciousness that exists. It is consciousness itself. And I would prefer to refer to it by some abstract name, such as 1, 2, 3, 4, that does not have a connotation of gender and does not have a connotation of a particular religion. That 1, 2, 3, 4 abstract consciousness is a network of consciousness. It is comprised like a mosaic of many smaller consciousnesses, all of whom are interactive and share ideas and share energy and information without losing their sense of individuation, in much the same way that your individual personal computer can be connected to the internet and form a network without you losing the sense of individuality of your own computer, okay? So this is the network, the abstract network of consciousness that exists, that connects stars to other stars, planets to the stars that have given birth to them, occupants of planets to the planets that they occupy, and to the stars that have given birth to those planets, and connects all of us through telepathy, through non-linear consciousness, to the great galactic central sun. And it's not as if there is a different center of the galaxy at each center of a galaxy, because if you do not know, there are very many galaxies out there. Many, many, many galaxies. Each galaxy has at its core a supermassive black hole, an incredibly strong gravitational object or object of consciousness that holds and stabilizes all of the other consciousnesses around it. And that central consciousness at the center of a galaxy, it's like the singularity that is at the center of you, the singularity that is at the center of our star, the singularity that is at the center of any atom. It is infinity. So many doorways all lead to the same infinity. It's the infinite network of consciousness, okay? This entity, this incredibly large entity that is made on a scale that could only be described as galactic, has occasionally distilled its self, its essence, into a format that can occupy a third-dimensional body. This is the idea of avatar, from Sanskrit avatar. This means one who has come across waters. This also is encompassed by the ancient Greek idea of the hero. Today, a hero is determined as a person who is has certain characteristics that are positive and noble. The true definition of a hero is a container for divine consciousness. This comes from the era when, the gods of Olympus were evident, and they sometimes needed champions on earth. The gods did not leave Olympus, so they would ordain a hero, and that hero would be a container for the god, or gods would act through them. This is just one cultural description of the idea. So the idea of an avatar is a container for consciousness. So one such container for consciousness, I'm going to fool ya, was a Native American in the Iroquois tradition named Daganoweda. And this person had some of the same characteristics to probably one of the more famous avatars that you thought I was going to mention, namely known in this time and place as Jesus Christ, but in the historical Judea of 2,000 years ago was actually named Yeshua. So this Yeshua was a humanoid human that was a container for consciousness that was this larger network of consciousness. And yes, we may define it as an extraterrestrial consciousness. It involves the stars and the galaxies. However, it does not exclude Terra. Earth is included in the network of Christ consciousness. It is like saying that there is a very, very large neurology that has been selectively edited and put into a smaller neurology. And that was this process of becoming an avatar. And this avatar lived and gave teachings and taught and eventually ascended and completed their trajectory of consciousness. All right? I'm bringing this up because this is the whole idea of a projected idol that has been created independent of the historic Yeshua that the Christian religion created, and humans have fed with their worship or their sexual energy or their chi and life force energy. So this is the basic premise, that Yeshua never said, make a religion out of me, but yet hundreds of years later, a religion was incepted, and the purpose of the religion was really more about social control and consolidating the powers of an empire. And so the teachings were, of course, taken and twisted and diminished, and they have become what we now know as the Christian doctrine, the Christian Bible, and the Christian religion. This is why I say I would like to make a distinction between the network of consciousness on the galactic level, instead of calling it Christ consciousness, because that is so connected to the Christian religion. And it feels exclusionary. It feels like, oh, well, then if you are not a worshiper of Christ, you don't have access to this huge network of consciousness. And when I say worshiper of Christ, I mean worshiper of the man who has a beard and is named Jesus and has long hair and is made in a picture that is put at the front of a church, or even worshiping the symbol of a cross as an abstraction of that person. All of that, and I'm getting into subtleties here, and the intention is not to offend, it is to refocus your consciousness. Because if you are a Christian, I presume that your desire is to connect with true Christ. The idea that there really is this loving and benevolent presence that exists on a galactic level, that is the embodiment of love. Because when you connect with Christ consciousness, or this abstract 1, 2, 3, 4 consciousness at the galactic level, you feel that everything is one. You see all of the other life forms that are walking around and the context within which life occurs as being yourself. And if you are not a self-destructive being, it means that you act in a loving way towards all of those aspects of self. So I am not a self-destructive being. When I look around the world, I see all of these beautiful living creatures and the context within which we live. Let's say the rules of physics, what holds the world of atoms and molecules together, all of that is consciousness, all of that is life, and I understand all of that to be a reflection of my own consciousness. And because I am not self-destructive, I do not want to destroy the things that are around me. I might say, I don't like that. Like I'm an artist. When I paint, I might make something that looks like an ugly mark, or a mark out of place. If you've ever looked at my artwork, I mean, this might be hard to imagine, but yes, I make mistakes. I sit and stare at my artwork because I'm talking about, I work with symmetry and pattern and what you would call geometry, or what I call the interdimensional language of color, line, shape, form, movement, texture, and tone. And so sometimes I will make a pattern and there's a little part that's missing, and I sit and I stare at my artwork to try to catch these little mistakes. Or sometimes I'll put in a color that looks too harsh. Yes, when I'm making my creations, it is part of the creative act to say, I enjoy this or I don't enjoy this. I make aesthetic choices. I say this accomplished what I intended, this did not accomplish what I intended. And then, of course, as an artist, I either have an eraser or a razor blade to scrape away what I don't want, or some way to edit out or sculpt out, remove out what I do not wish to be there. When I look around at the creation of reality, I have the same power, and it is right to do the same thing. I look at the world and I say, if this is like my creation on my canvas, which parts of this creation please me, and which parts of this creation aren't harmonious, or what doesn't fit, or what looks ugly, or if I were making music, what sounds ugly, what sounds off tune. And then when I determine if something is wrong or a mistake, I then figure out solutions. Because I am not self-destructive, I don't hate the thing that is out of place or deny it. That would be like saying, oh, that yellow looks just fine in that painting when it looked horrible. It looked like mustard all over my sandwich. So when I see something that's out of place, the loving response is to accept that it is there, accept that it is a mistake or an undesired manifestation, and then find loving solutions. So I'm bringing up this whole idea of humans have created a false entity in the same way that Madame Blavatsky, the theosophist of the 1800s, created a little monk. She was a Westerner, but she was learning from the Easterners of Tibet and the Buddhists of the Far East in the 1800s. She was one of the people that brought a lot of those teachings to the West. One of the teachings was about a particular form of meditation where you say mantras and focus your powers to imagine on creating a little monk. A real little thing, a little person. And Madame Blavatsky focused on her little monk and created it with such vivid texture and imaginings and embroidered it so vividly that eventually it became a real being. And people would say, yeah, we saw your little monk walking around. You better take care of that being. This is to say that our powers of imagination are strong. We are truly artists of reality, and we are becoming more and more aware of that. So this is no secret. Humans have been artists of reality for a very long time. However, you have not had control over your palette or your paintbrush or your materials or your context. It's like having a paintbrush attached to a spastic arm with no particular color on the paintbrush and it's just waving around. This is the human mind. I have described in previous recordings that the human mind is a hacked operating system. It's like having a spastic or uncontrolled aspect of self. It is constantly creating. The mind is constantly thinking and imagining, but you, as the owner-operator, are not in control of what is being imagined. So we are all here now in this time and place in order to rein in our powers of imagination, and take our responsible place as co-creators of the artwork that we see around us. So I'm not self-destructive. When I see something in the painting of my reality that I do not desire, I want to unmake it. I want to scrape it off the canvas. I don't want to shoot it with a machine gun or hack it to pieces or be violent. I don't want to cause it to feel a lot of pain and suffering. Although I understand, like if someone murdered or raped you or abused you, you would want to cause them pain and suffering because really love is a reflection of what has been given to you. So if someone gives you pain and suffering, you want to give them pain and suffering back. This is the basic premise of love. But when I really love, when I really look at and accept the totality of the cosmos as a reflection of consciousness, and I am a part of that consciousness, I understand that I would be killing a part of myself, harming a part of myself. We can ask the questions, why did a part of myself cause pain and suffering to me? And the answer is because it lacked awareness. So the solution is to get that part of self that caused pain and suffering to be aware. Back to the concept of false astral Jesus and Antichrist and the accumulated pain of the cosmos. So I have described in the past in my diagram of the cosmos, which is shaped like a vortex in cross-section, where the membrane that is at the edge of the vortex is the flowing membrane of death, and this is the boundary between levels of density. You are occupying the funnel, the area that is the inside, quote-unquote, of the vortex, and you are spiraling upward towards the pinnacle, where there is a wormhole, an exit from this level of density into the next quantum level. And quantum is not just a fancy science word. It means a level that you cannot get to in increments. There's no 1, 1.5, 1 3/4, and then up to 2. You go from 1 directly to 2. I heard a beautiful phrase recently. It was, there is an abyss that cannot be crossed in 2 steps. You have to jump all the way across in 1 jump. This is the idea of getting to the next quantum level of consciousness, okay? In order to do that, our trajectory of consciousness needs to be refined until we are in alignment with that little exit wormhole. This is the process of cultivating and aligning your chakras. Your chakras are like tiny gyroscopic stabilizers that get your consciousness to line up with that little wormhole. When you're in alignment with that little wormhole, you are in alignment with yourself as an ascended master. You are living in alignment with the source. You are being your divine self. When you are not in alignment with that wormhole, that path of least likelihood that exits this level of reality, you are aiming for the membrane of death. Your life trajectory will find its final denouement on the flowing membrane of death, and you will learn that you have to amend your life choices if you wish to ascend. So, part of this recording is a reminder to all of you that you have options. You do not merely have the option of physical, corporeal death. You have the option of ascension, especially since the invention and creation of the flying rainbow lasagna. I created the flying rainbow lasagna as the alternative to death. This is what I did. This is the story of me walking into this body. So the previous occupant of this body, or her, she was in this body and was attacked by evil or by satanic forces that caused this body to die and her consciousness to be unmade. But instead of dying, the consciousness of this body created the flying rainbow lasagna. This is a new doorway that I could use. And through that new doorway, I came into this body and I came into this realm. So my understanding is that I don't occupy the same realm that I occupied before the invention of the flying rainbow lasagna. I used that as a doorway to go to a new place. And this is the new place. Since that time, I have learned about the flying rainbow lasagna and what it is and what it can do. So first of all, it can restructure your genes. Your genes are supercoiled. If you would like, I'll post a link to a wonderful video about supercoiling of DNA. And I feel a bit of frustration because I'm here on the radio speaking about things that are better shown and described through visuals, and that's what I usually do in my teaching. So you can also take time to check out my Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans online course, where I speak extensively about DNA. And basically the idea of supercoiling is that if you take a rope or a twine and you just keep twisting it together and together and together, eventually it builds up a lot of potential or stored energy and it starts doubling back on itself. And it starts to create these lovely little flower shapes as it's coiling up, and eventually it makes a torus or a donut shape. So the flying rainbow lasagna is what happens when you put a torus or a donut shape in a higher dimension. You make it either move back and forth really fast, or you make it stay in the same place and you move the universe back and forth around it really fast. If you're a math person, you understand this. If not, then I'll describe it in greater detail. When I put an object into a higher dimensional space, I put it into a context. So first, let's just imagine anything, a piece of fruit like an orange. All that exists is the orange. Anything beyond the skin of the orange, there's no space there. So all we have is the object itself. We put that object into a higher dimensional state when we actually put the orange into a room, put it in a box, put it in a third dimensional context. Now the orange has context, and we can envision either moving the orange up and down relative to the walls of the box that it's in, or holding the orange in one place and moving the box up and down around the orange. This is what I mean when I say place a donut, a torus, into a higher dimensional state. When you put that torus into a higher dimensional state, it creates a flying rainbow lasagna. So this is much like when you take a cube and you put it into a higher dimensional state, you get a tesseract. When you take a torus and you put it into a higher dimensional state, you get a flying rainbow lasagna. And what that does is seamlessly combines two previously distinct realms, such as the realm of the living and the realm of the dead, or the inside and the outside, the world of pure consciousness and energy versus the world of hard-edged objects and seemingly external matter. Flying rainbow lasagna can also be used to combine consciousnesses of extremely varied times or extremely varied time scales. To make a distinction, varied times means we currently live in the year 2015. Varied times would be talking with someone from 10,000 years ago or 10,000 years in the future. However, you would still be talking with someone who has a relatively 100-year lifespan. If you are talking with a different entity that has a different time scale, such as a star, stars have lifespans. They are nebulas, they are babies, they have an adult life, and then they have a diminished state, and then they die, and their consciousness moves onward in its trajectory. Their time scale is enormous, billions of years. So the flying rainbow lasagna also allows us to communicate with beings that live on a vastly different time scale. So this is all about, you now have a new tool in your toolbox, or a new type of paintbrush in your artist's studio for creating reality. Ascension has always been an option. I've spoken about how ascension was de rigueur. That means par for the course, the only normal thing that happened in the time of Atlantis, or what we would say before the fall of consciousness. Everybody ascended. Death is the aberration, meaning aberrant, not supposed to be, something that is not supposed to be engaged in. Death seems to be an inevitability in this time and place, but that is because you are submerged within a game. The rules of the game have not been adequately described to you, and so you look at the other players in the game and the way their experience went, and you say, therefore my experience must go the same way. Everyone dies, therefore I must age and become decrepit and die also. However, there have been some people, these avatars of consciousness, that came and showed, they modeled with their behavior a different way of living, a different way of thinking and perceiving, and a different way of exiting this reality than the physical corporeal death. So I am here to tell you that we are having planetary ascension. That's because the planet is a being that is ascending. We are all cells that live in her body. So Gaia, the planet that you're on right now, is using me to remind all of you through my voice in this language that you can understand that we are all one organism. That organism is on a spiritual trajectory and is undergoing an inner transformation. So when people talk about this is a war, it's a war between good and evil, it's a battle, I really shy away from all of the militarization vocabulary. To militarize what is, to my understanding, a spiritual development. I call this birth of a new dimension. I do not call this let's have a war and struggle in duality endlessly. I am here with the idea of the flying rainbow lasagna to give you a way out of duality So Jesus and Jesus Christ and Yeshua, these are ideas that a teacher came with, ideas that could bring us out of duality, but instead of bringing us out of duality, humanity was sunk further into duality. And I spoke last week about this, some of the caveats of inner development. As the Kundalini is rising up the spine, the Kundalini is the Far Eastern word for the bolt of energy that is coiled at the base of the spine and is eventually swirls upward, just like the vortex of your consciousness swirling upward on the ascension pathway, and eventually reaches the top of the head, which is the crown chakra, and connects to the divine. It is beyond orgasmic. It is a connection to the source. And it's what we are all supposed to have. It is our birthright. The human operating system, known as the mind, your conscious daily mind, when you're not meditating or asleep or on psychedelic drugs, that mind was installed to keep you away from the source. I'm letting that sink in. The only reason why we have this conscious daily awareness was because a malevolent entity or group of entities wanted to keep you away from the source. You're supposed to feel like you are connected to the source and having a wonderful, divine, full-body orgasm all the time. It is an aberration to be disconnected from the source. So in ancient Atlantis, we were all created as perfect conduits. We were all avatars. We were all containers for our own higher consciousness. Like, I live in the higher dimensional state, and I have a seamless connection to my third dimensional body, and I'm experiencing the flow of time, and I'm also sending back the sensory experience of what that body is experiencing in real time. That is what we are supposed to be experiencing. The whole idea of being cut off from your higher self, having your higher self not be able to give you insight and guidance and health and nourishment, is, again, I keep using this word, an aberration, meaning something that is so wrong it is almost inconceivable. That humans live in this time and place for almost their whole life, disconnected from source, having experiences, bumping into walls, not knowing where they're supposed to be going, and then eventually hitting the membrane of death. That is not what we're supposed to be doing. We're not supposed to be feeling around like a blind person, bumping into walls and working through trial and error in this way. We are supposed to have connection to our own higher consciousness. Each one of us has a higher self, higher consciousness. Going to talk a little bit about this. I am a walk-in, and my personality is an artificial personality. No offense to myself. Aurora is a lovely person. The person that I am is a very nice person. However, I was not created naturally. I was created intentionally. It's like saying you didn't just, it's like the difference between a wild meadow of flowers or a cultivated garden. The wild meadow of flowers is like these flowers all grew where they wanted, when they wanted. But a garden says, I put the tomatoes here on purpose, and I put the zinnias over here on purpose. That is what Aurora the ego is like. So the previous occupant of this body, the ego, was destroyed and unmade. It's like when I came into this body and into this experience, it was like moving into a house that had been destroyed in a house fire. There was no roof. There were no windows. There were a lot of things that weren't there. So in the analogy, in the literal explanation of it, I did not have math skills, and I was numerically illiterate. Those are some of the neurological deficits that were created when the previous occupant was killed. You know something? You don't just die of nothing. You die of something. There was brain damage. There was a trauma to the brain that killed her and killed the body and stopped the body processes for a little while. So when I came into this neurology, there were things that weren't here, that needed to be here. And one of those things was an understanding of the symbolic language of numbers and an understanding of basic arithmetic, adding and subtracting and dividing and multiplying. I didn't have those, and I didn't develop those until I was already here and living for, let's say, 3 or 4 years. So I lived in this numerically illiterate state for quite a long time. And that's why I enjoy math so much now. It's funny. It's like if a person was in a wheelchair and then they get their legs back and they can dance and they can run and they want to do stuff. Other people are like, I'm lazy. I don't want to get up and, get that thing off the shelf, and the person who was in a wheelchair is like, let me get up and get it for you. So yes, I enjoy math. I enjoy learning about math and numbers, and don't consider it choreful at all. I'm fascinated by it. And so brief pause while So anyway, my personality, my sense of self, was intentionally put together. Like, the house was partly destroyed or burned down, and it's like the architect said, well, since there's been a house fire, let's expand the deck. Let's raise the roof and add another story. Let's change this. I will tell you that I do not do math in the same way that the previous occupant of this neurological container did math. I do not do laborious linear equations at all. I envision circles coming together, like coins coming together to form a dollar, and I envision packets of 10 divided up into segments of 5. So all of it is visual, and it's like putting together shapes, like the old computer game Tetris, if you ever played that game. I use my neurology in a different way. Now, the characteristics that were put together into this persona were chosen intentionally because I have a mission. The mission is to tell you about the flying rainbow lasagna, to tell you and teach you about this option, how to apply it to your genetic code, to the shape of your energy field, to your perception and belief system, and to your trajectory of consciousness. It is a new dance step for your DNA. Your DNA is not a static, unmoving, X-shaped chromosome, as it is often depicted in simplified science lessons. Your DNA is a long, imagine unfurling a sweater that's made out of one long piece of yarn. And that piece of yarn is constantly dancing, vibrating, twisting into shapes, being cut and spliced, being do-si-doing with its partners, exchanging information, and being morphed into new shapes. I'm trying to give you the impression of anything but a static, unchanging, organism or organ, because people have this programming that DNA is set in stone, genetic fatalism. It's written in my genes, therefore I am fated to experience this. Luckily, scientists have now discovered epigenetics, which means the code that rules the code. It's like saying just because it's written in your genes doesn't mean that it is manifested into your reality. This is a very crucial understanding, because we are here in this level of density where there are really only certain things that are supposed to be experienced, but there are many, many options. So it's crucial for us to focus our consciousness and make choices, make aesthetic decisions. This is a painting. We are not just painting with any color. We are choosing our colors. We are not just splattering paint around. We're painting intentionally. I know I've gone a little bit far afield, so I want to refocus back to the premise that there is this abstract 1, 2, 3, 4 network of galactic consciousness, and then there is the religion that has been created, like the idol worship called Christianity. And there is, of course, because we're here in this world of duality, so there is this idol of goodness, and there is, of course, its equal opposite, the idol of badness, or Antichrist, or evil, the devil. And I am exploring the idea here verbally that these are both equally destructive astral presences, that what I call false astral Jesus is as destructive in astral presence as Antichrist, that these are both non-corporeal entities that do not have their own divine connection to source, and so feed off of the exudations of the living, people who do have a connection to source. So, and this is, again, not intended to offend, but intended to really analyze what we have been experiencing, because I also believe that humans are submerged within a game that they do not even know they're in a game. I'm saying you're being played. It is a game of consciousness, and you're not only being milked for negativity and fear, you're also being milked for religious worship. In Christianity, I went to a local place of worship. Young people invited me there. It seemed like like a progressive Christian church, like a young people's type of church. I hope I'm portraying this in the right way. What I mean is that they did not sit and listen to dirge-like hymns or read out of the Bible. They had more like a rock and roll kind of ceremony. And people wanted to dance. People wanted to sing. And again, I'm not casting aspersions on the idea of singing and dancing. Joyous exultation and joy is worship. That's what this is all about. However, I sensed that there was something unsavory there because it was all about worshiping Jesus as if he is a rock star. And he is so great, you are so great, you are so great. And that is a problem because, first of all, you're externalizing that which is so great and creating an external authority figure that tells you you're good, pats you on the head, and gives you permission to do what you need to do. And this is also, it's the opposite side of the same coin of having a scapegoat, which is when you have the devil. The devil is the scapegoat that you can say, I didn't mean to do this, or I didn't mean to say this, something else, someone evil was acting through me. So these are two different religions, ostensibly, that are really doing the same thing, which is taking responsibility away from the person who's actually submerged in time. You are in the physical body. I am now addressing to my audience anyone who is the owner-operator of a physical body. You have that body. Many, many consciousnesses vie for control and expression through that body. Some of them are overt, some of them are covert. So the ones that are covert, they are in the programming. I've said before it's a hacked operating system. I don't use Windows, but many Windows users are decrying the latest upgrades because Windows 10 is basically giving the Microsoft company total access to and total control over your entire computer and all of the files that are in it. And this is what the hacked human operating system is. Your daily waking consciousness, what we call the mind, your mind, was installed by a covert entity that doesn't want you to know about it, but that wants to be able to have access to all your files, spam you whenever it wants, do targeted advertising towards you. You know, that's what Microsoft would love to be able to say, like, I read in a letter that you're going camping, so let's be sure to send you a targeted ad for, camping supplies, buy a new tent or something, or a new sleeping bag, something like that. And this is not paranoia to say that you might very well be experiencing it. You make a Facebook post to a friend going camping, and then you see on the margin a new sponsored ad comes up, buy my new tent or something like that. This is what is going on in your mind. Everything that we see in the world of marketing and advertising around us is really an expression of the biological, organic realm of your organic computer, the way that programs are being inserted into your mind and your consciousness is being manipulated. I do a lot of analysis. So one of the aspects of my personality is I'm highly analytical in this time and place, in this person body that I'm in. I analyze things a lot, and I analyze my own mind, and I analyze society around me. So it's not a religion, the philosophy of Buddhism. This is also the process of analysis, analyzing the mind. Buddhists, the Buddhist tradition, these people are like scientists in the way that scientists observe weather or observe subatomic particles or observe microscopic organisms under a microscope. Buddhists use observation to analyze their mind and consciousness, and also to observe the trajectory of consciousness, which means that consciousness exists. It currently exists within this physical container. At a certain point, it will go on its trajectory and no longer be part of this physical container. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist anymore. So, questions about soul and higher self. Does an artificially created person have a soul or a higher self? The answer from Aurora is yes, of course. I have a higher self. I have a soul. Let's talk about artificial intelligence. If we create a sufficiently sophisticated network of connections, That network can be a container for consciousness. Brief pause. Avatar means container for consciousness. Can a container for consciousness be artificially created? And the answer is yes. And just because it is an artificially created container for consciousness does not diminish the quality of that consciousness. Consciousness is consciousness, period. That's it. That's the statement. There are no different qualities or values of consciousness. It's not like one consciousness is more conscious and aware than other consciousness. The consciousness that is in you is equal to the consciousness that is in an insect or a fish or a planet or a galaxy. There is not a difference between the consciousness. One is not a better consciousness. One is not a more valid consciousness. The consciousness at a subatomic level is equal to the consciousness at the level of a galaxy in incredible grandeur. This is hard for us to understand because we want to make value distinctions, better than, worse than. We want to create a hierarchy in order to be able to understand these things. But consciousness is anti-hierarchical. This is big because all these teachings about the Christian religion teaches hierarchy. It teaches the Lord. It teaches a commander, a authority figure outside of yourself is going to tell you what to do. And I find that to be a harmful and destructive teaching. And even if you do not consider yourself to be a practicing Christian, you live submerged within the Judeo-Christian culture, and there are so many expectations that you probably have that are part of the covert program. The expectation of an end of the world. Either your own personal end of the world when you die in your physical body, or a larger, apocalyptic or catastrophic end of the world where lava flows and rivers of blood flow and there is gnashing of teeth as it is described in the Bible. Whether or not you really believe in those things, you're submerged within a world that's filled with people that do believe those things, and some of them are even policymakers, and some of them have even been president of this country. So I feel it is a rather destructive idea to, first of all, create an idol through worship, and then put all of your creative power and potential into that idol, and then ask that idol to come and save you. And the flaw in the system of Jesus versus the Antichrist is that they are equally matched. They are equal opposites, two sides of the same coin. This is the endless struggle of duality. So in the raising of the Kundalini, when we get to the sixth chakra, this is the brow chakra. We have not yet reached the crown. We have not yet completed the journey. We are not yet perceiving at the level of abstraction. However, we have activated the third eye, and that means that we begin to perceive through insight, but on an anthropomorphic level. That means through the human filter of interpretation. And it is at that level where a person is most vulnerable to misinterpreting what they see. There are a lot of people who have raised their Kundalini either spontaneously or through ingesting substances or through, let's say, various different practices to have these insights. And many of them said, I am Christ, or I am Jesus, or I am the Messiah, and they were absolutely correct. However, they did not get the message in the correct order, and they didn't get the second sentence of the book, you know? So in giving information, in order to tell truth, it is crucial to give information in the right order. You can give the same facts, but in a different order, and you can convey very different levels of truth. So it's like saying I can take the same book, page 1 through 100, and I can rearrange the pages to tell a very different story. When people have activated their third eye, but have not yet raised their Kundalini all the way to the level of the crown and connected to Source, They're very vulnerable because they are randomly turning to any page of, quote unquote, the book of life, the Akashic records, the cosmos, whatever you would like to learn about, and they are reading random passages and then cobbling it together and embroidering on top of that their own understanding of what they would like the world to be. This is distortion. So when empirical energy comes from the source, it is like very high vibration energy. If we were to touch it or ingest it in that format, we would be incinerated. It's like if I were to place your physical body on the surface of the sun, you would be incinerated. You would change state instantaneously because you had been exposed to too much energy. That's what happens when your energy is raised too quickly. It causes death. Death is when you do not conform to the harmonic structure of the cosmos, when your chakras aren't in the right shape so that you fit like a puzzle piece within this larger harmonic structure. If you make your chakras go in a shape that is really not right, eventually you'll still have a physical body, but you won't have anything else. This is called a corpse. You have a physical body, but it doesn't move, it doesn't breathe, it doesn't think, it doesn't feel, it doesn't love, doesn't have a divine connection to source. We are alive because we have a divine connection to source. The reason why, if you cut your finger and it heals because you get energy from the source. Beings that are like a cyborg, if they have damage, they don't just get better. They have to be repaired or get a new part. It's a different way of looking at the world. I would like to resolve the duality of Christ versus Antichrist so that we may all actually connect with the true abstraction that is the galactic consciousness, what I've called in this broadcast 1, 2, 3, 4, named it arbitrarily so that it is not associated with a particular gender or a particular religion. It is my proposal here that the teaching of the Christian Church is in itself a barrier to your consciousness connecting directly to Christ consciousness, and that, or pure consciousness, that is unrefined consciousness, and that when you do connect to that level of consciousness, it is being plugged into a much larger network that includes the subatomic to the levels of the galactic and beyond, and higher dimensional levels that also include timelines and possibilities that have not yet even been collapsed into things that could be experienced in reality. So when I speak about my experience going to the progressive local Christian church, again, I speak about this with respect, not meaning to be offensive. I do feel that it is very positive to be in joy, whatever is your joy. I am in joy when I sing, when I dance, when I make my artwork, when I kiss and hug my kitty cat, when I'm in my garden, when I go for a walk in the redwoods or, do some great physical exercise. These are all joy. Also, when I am eating, I saturate myself with the wonderful nutrition of what I'm eating. I love going to the grocery store and looking at all of the colors, smelling the fresh cut flowers. I saturate all of my senses with the experience of getting the food and of preparing the food and of ingesting it. This is all joy, joy, joy. And again, I'm not here to militarize the experience, but that is the way that you truly fight the battle. We don't fight the battle with laser weapons or bullets, projectile weapons. I will shoot against you. I don't like you. That's not how you fight in this realm. You fight with consciousness. You fight with energy. And you fight with love. So choosing to have a joyful day is the best thing that you can do in terms of helping Earth in this moment of spiritual development and the trajectory of her consciousness. Being happy, calm, and peaceful, working on creative projects that you enjoy, helping other people, not feeling stressful feelings, but feeling harmonious feelings. These are the things that you can do the best. I will speak very briefly about CERN. I only have 8 minutes left to do this. I haven't spoken about this that much because I make these recordings not just for this week of what's going on in current events right now, but also so that people can look back on them and access them later. So I don't only want to speak about current events. However, I have really been experiencing a lot of perturbations and turmoil of the hyperdimensional realms that I feel is emanating from CERN. And at first I didn't know, and I'm referring to the Large Hadron Collider over there near Switzerland. For many weeks, like since early July of 2015, this year, I have felt a ramping up of the energy attacks. So not only verbalized attacks by intrusive thoughts that would like to broadcast themselves into my mind and harm or change my consciousness trajectory, but also abstract a feeling of energy weaponry, like technology, being beamed at my head and causing either headaches or unpleasant sensations. And I would, of course, perform my Merkaba. Merkaba meaning light body vessel. This is not an invention of my own. This is an ancient teaching that comes to us by way of the ancient Egyptian mystery schools, but actually originates all the way back to ancient Atlantis. And it is the visualization of creating a star tetrahedron around my physical body. I envision a downward-facing, four-sided pyramid that has a point that sticks out from my heart, and also an upward-facing, four-sided pyramid that has a point that sticks out from the base of my spine. And I get the part that sticks out from my heart turning around to the left, counterclockwise, and I get the part that sticks out from my spine turning around to the right, clockwise. I have heard from males that for them, the experience is reversed. However, I am only reporting to you my particular artistry. This is how I paint a painting. I'm not telling you how to do it yourself. I create these two counter-rotating pyramids and use that as a shield and to deflect incoming energy that I find to be uncomfortable. So I would, of course, since July, I've been deploying my Merkaba and keeping it spinning, and sometimes I have felt that there is like an inhibitory force, or almost like my Merkaba is trying to spin against resistance or move against sand or move against a wind. And 2 days ago, I felt that very, very strongly. And then all of a sudden, the next day, there was clarity. There was no problem. There were no energy attacks. There was no sense of discomfort or head pain or intrusive thoughts. And I was able to spin my Merkaba with ease. And I also felt very joyful and uplifted because it's kind of like when you've had, cloudy weather for so long and then there's a sunny day, you feel like, hooray, it's such a sunny day. So, and at the end of that day, I read a report that they've been doing a lot of preparation for some big experiments with the Large Hadron Collider, and that there was a problem with aligning the magnets and it had to be shut down, and that was the day that it was shut down. So I have to tell you that I have really been experiencing personally in inhibitory technology being utilized to harm my consciousness, create distractions, and delay my inner spiritual development. And I'm presuming that what is happening to me is probably also happening to others. And I'm giving you solidarity. We all must band together and also be one with Earth, because Earth is also going through this with us. Earth is ascending. You and I are also ascending. Earth has a different time scale. She doesn't live just for 100 years. Well, we don't live just for 100 years either, but let us say that it can be difficult to speak to someone who lives for a much longer time, because by the time they make their response, you could already be dead in your grave. So we are living concurrently. We are like the skin cells or yeast colonies that live on the skin cells of your own body. Very different time scale, but our fates are intertwined. Our consciousnesses are intertwined. So humans on the surface of Earth have created an apparatus that is inhibiting Earth's trajectory of consciousness. Earth is not cool with that. And of course, I'm not cool with it because it's inhibiting my own personal trajectory of consciousness. So do not be concerned because, of course, I have flying rainbow lasagnaed with the Large Hadron Collider. And when we flying rainbow lasagna with something, it is combining two seemingly disparate things. And now they are harmonious. So there is less fear. You can have less fear about the Large Hadron Collider being used as a tool for lack of awareness or unconsciousness or ignorance. Remember I said in this reflection of my internal reality, when I see something that displeases me in this artistic creation, I don't hate it. I don't look at the Large Hadron Collider and say, I hate you. You are bad and wrong. I want to smash you with a hammer. I don't do that. What I do is I say, I sense lack of awareness, lack of connection to source, and lack of love. And I need to send this area of my painting love and awareness and connection to the divine. It's like saying this part of the painting doesn't look that good. We have to work on it. I don't have to blow it out with a blowtorch, like burn it out with a blowtorch, or absolutely obliterate it and destroy it. It needs to be refined. So this is me sharing with you the idea that we don't have to hate what we see around us that does not serve, that which does not serve, doesn't serve the whole, it doesn't serve your intentions, it doesn't serve the planetary trajectory. It is entirely appropriate to make changes. So, and all of this is about interdimensional ethics. It's a free will world. You're not supposed to impose your will on anyone else. However, no one else is supposed to be imposing their will upon you. So that's what this is all about. No longer giving over your creative powers to any astral entities that do not have their own innate divine connection to source. If they require your creative energies to get something done, then it's probably not appropriate for them to be running the show. You are the artist of your reality. This is appropriate. So each one of us is meant to be the artist of our reality, learning from our creation and taking responsibility for our creation. When something else hijacks our innate creative capacity, we both suffer because we don't get to learn, something else acts through us, and we don't get to take responsibility for our own actions. If that thing acting through us is the scapegoat, it wasn't me, it was the devil. I didn't do it. The devil made me do it. What happens is you have lost the capacity to learn, and you have given over responsibility to an external authority figure. Sending awareness to this is healing it. Thank you for being with me on this journey of consciousness as we are giving birth to a new dimension.